Okay. So what we're gonna look at here real quick today, we talked about demand, we talked about supply. Now we're gonna talk about when the two lines meet, when this demand meets the supply or supply meets the demand. This is what we call equilibrium. This is basically how we get the price of goods and the quantity of goods that are going to be produced for all the certain goods and services out there. So this is kind of how we get the price. So when you go to the store, you see certain prices. They're not just made up prices out there. Um, it's basically where the consumers agree to buy a product at that price, and then where the producers or the suppliers where they agree to sell the product at that price. So both have to kind of work for this whole thing, for us to get the price, but it's where the two meet. So basically, when you see the graph, when you have them both together on the same graph, you got your supply and demand, and that equilibrium point is right there in the middle where they intersect. So it makes an X. X marks the spot. And what you see, this is how you would label it. So you'd have obviously your price, your quantity, and then this is where we get the price and then the quantity demanded and supplied and the price at that demand or supply. Okay. Now, like we've looked at, supply can change, demand can change. All those things can change and affect prices, supply, and things like that. So, changes in equilibrium. So, supply or demand changes. Equilibrium, when the supply or demand changes, the equilibrium price and quantity changes. Okay. So, we have all these things here. If demand increases, then price increases, quantity increases. If demand increases, then price decreases. If demand decreases, price decreases, and quantity decreases. Supply increase, price decrease, quantity increases. And if the supply decreases, then the price increases and quantity decreases. So instead of just writing that down, but feel free to write it down if you want. There's graphs here. We'll look at just how it looks on the graph because it makes a little more sense. Okay, so we'll always start with our standard, equilibrium point, right here. Okay, so if we had something, a determinant or something that affects our scenario where the demand is going to increase, we would shift that line to the right. Okay, remember, increase is always to the right. So we would have our new demand curve right here. Okay, notice what happens to the equilibrium point. Okay, it is now shifted up the line to here. Okay, so if we draw our little, you can use dashed lines or whatever to show your arrow, label your demand. Your new demand is D1, D2, something like that, just so we know there's a difference between these two. If you just put, label it with the D, label this one with the D, no arrow or nothing, then I'm going to look at this and be like, well, I don't know which one's which. So are you showing an increase? Are you showing a decrease? And so forth. So if we redraw these lines here, we can see that the price has increased and the quantity demanded has increased. Okay. So demand increases to the right, therefore, little points here. Okay. Price increases, quantity increases. Okay. So, and you can see that if you ever get confused, just draw a graph real quick and show an increase in demand, and then you'll see right there. Here's your new equilibrium point. Price, quantity, both have increased. Okay. Complete opposite. If we do a decrease in demand, again, we'll start with our simple equilibrium, and then we're going to move that to the left. Okay. And then we're going to have a decrease in price and in quantity. So think about that. When something's in less demand, the price isn't going to go up. People aren't buying it. So the price is going to decrease. Okay. Quantity demand is going to decrease. Suppliers are going to decrease their supply as well. Okay. So on and so forth. All right. Now, increase in supply. Okay, same thing. Remember, increase to the right. Don't think up and down. So don't think supply goes up and then you end up drawing your line up here. Okay. So there we have it. Increase to the right. You can see here's your original equilibrium. Okay. And then here is your new price and quantity. So we've increased the quantity. Okay. Notice what happens to the price. So think about that. When there's always a lot of a product or an over supply of it, what happens to the prices? Okay. Think of, let's see, I don't know, Christmas, or we're coming up, getting, it's hot, but, end of summer will be here. Um, think about all the summer items at stores. Okay. They're all going to end up going on sale. They're going to be much cheaper. There's too much supply of those products left. The prices increase. Okay. The demand is not there. Okay. So the price is going to increase. Okay. So supply increase, therefore price decreases, quantity increases. Okay. Same thing for your decreases supply. Remember, that's always going to shift to the left. Here's your original equilibrium. We shift it to the left. We update our labels so we know which is our original supply line, which is our new supply line. Okay, or supply curve. And there we have it. So we see decrease in supply, we see an increase in prices. Okay, decrease in quantity, increase in prices. Okay, and there's your shorthand down there at the bottom to kind of summarize that. So on your assignment that you're about to do, you're going to have basically a mixture. You're going to have to use those determinants, the tripe and the nice jag, in order to figure out, with that example, which is it being affected first? Is it the demand that's being affected first or the supply? Okay, you're not going to move both of the curves on each problem. You're going to move the curve, whether it's supply or demand, of which one will be affected first by the scenario. Okay, but each one is going to have a supply and a demand curve, but you're only going to shift one of them. Okay, because we want to see the change in the quantity and price based on which one is being affected.